What's up, everybody? It is Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, but it's for Florida in focus. And I'm so excited to be in the great state of FLA, the second home of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You know that, and Mike knows this from back in the day when I was on ESPN 1080 The Team. I always ended the show with a segment called Florida in Focus. And since I left Florida, I have never taken my focus off of with my coverage of the Jacksonville Jaguars, UCF, USF, Miami, Florida State, the high schools down there, the Orlando Magic, and the Orlando City SC, and so on and so forth. So I'm very happy to be back in the Sunshine State. Mike and I are here together. You know that this entire week of Wake Up Call on the road, hashtag Wake Up Call OTR, Wake Up Call on the road, and Wake Up Call everywhere, has been featuring each day somebody that I truly respect from the state of Florida, somebody that's it's not only a show down in Florida, but one guest per day for the 5 days that we're down there. And so today, of course, Wednesday, February 24th, has to be taken up by my guy, Mike Sofka, because he's with me every Wednesday, typically from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus. You can call them for curbside pickup, takeout, and delivery at 315-487-2222. So as we're down here in Florida, Florida in focus, I couldn't think of any other person that's going to take up my Wednesday. 5 people in the state of Florida, and I've chosen Florida Man to be my Wednesday guy. What is up, Mr. Sofka? We have missed you on video, and I got to tell you that I love my studio, but I want to live in your studio right now. You're looking good right now.
Well, thank you, Dan. Enjoying the sunshine here, of course, and just trying to be all I can be in Florida, because I know there's people in other parts of the country. I mean, it's snowing in Texas. What is going on? But you know what? It's like in the 70s here, and I'm feeling fine. The sun is shining. Everything's good. Life's good.
Well, the thing is you don't really need to have any type of mask covering. You could just flip your beard up and you're good to go.
That's correct.
I love it. So, right. You are, before we go anywhere, Mike, I am so excited that you are the jersey that you're wearing. My favorite player of all time in the NFL is Mr. Fred Taylor. And the crazy story is my mom got me teal, which has now been voted as the primary color in Jacksonville. She got me the teal jersey, that same one, of Fred Taylor with the full Jaguar on the arms. And she got it for a Christmas before it was on sale anywhere. And here's the irony. In order for her to get it to me, she had to pre-order it before it went on sale. And she got the jersey from Tennessee. So the Titans are the, big time rivals inside of the AFC South. And the only way my mom could get a Fred Taylor jersey before it went on sale was to go to Tennessee, which I thought was kind of cool.
That's funny. That's awesome. That's a great story.
So you got a Fred Taylor jersey as well. You're a Gator. Fred was a Gator, wore 21, my favorite number. Yep. Then he went on to play for Jacksonville. So obviously you've been a fan of Fred for a couple of reasons.
Yeah, without a doubt. I've had the opportunity to meet and speak with Fred on more than one occasion, and he's always been nice. And he was a business guy. He went to work, went to business. And I always remember, I try to like all the teams. I try not to like one team, but Jacksonville's close and Tampa's close, so I will tag on when I have one brother has season tickets to the Jags, one brother has season tickets to the Bucks, so I take advantage of that when I can. Yeah. And I can remember back in the 90s, I think it was, when Fred, my brother and I think it was a Monday Night Football game. I think it was one of Dan Marino's last game. Maybe it was a playoff game even, Dan Marino's last game. And the very first play from scrimmage, Fred Taylor from the 20, 80 yards off tackle to the right, takes it to the house, and you could just see it on Dan Marino's face. I think the Jags won by like 50 points or something silly like that. So yeah. I'll always remember that. And I just said we were excited. We were getting ready for the first play from scrimmage. They kicked off, had a touchback, and they're lining up. And I go to my brother. I go, geez, I hope Fred has a good game because I got him on my fantasy team and I need some points. And as soon as I said that, he took off for an 80-yard jaunt, and that was that's something I'll always remember. I told that story to Fred and he started laughing. He remembered that as well. Well, not that I was in the stand saying that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, and I think, it's such cool. And I remember that game because I grew up and my first favorite player was Dan Marino. And so number 13, my grandfather's number, and my friend's mom worked at the Gap, and she actually had a personalized spray painted sweatshirt that she made for me that had like the Miami Dolphins helmet. And on the back, instead of Marino, it said Tortora 13. Wow. And I just remember that. And I love Dan Marino. So that was Dan's last game. And then Fred Taylor's doing his thing. And that game, if I remember watching it live, I didn't see it like you were in those seats. I saw it at home. But I believe Jacksonville won that game 62-7, which was
the
last game that Dan Marino ever played in the NFL. So definitely. And I remember that touchdown because I'm sitting here going like, that's 80 something yards. And I saw him and like, I got so excited anytime Fred touched the ball, got a chance, got an opportunity. I used to get so mad where he would go like 80 yards, 70 yards down the field. And then they'd bring in his backup to rush in for the last 3 yards. I get so pissed. And as a fantasy owner, like you get really mad about that because you get the yardage, but you didn't get the 6. So, I remember like the backups on the team, like, why is this dude, like I support them all, but why is he getting it? And I think at some point you kind of saw Fred on the sideline, like, really, bro, I'm gonna go 74 yards and you're not gonna let me get the last one. So, I love that you got to meet Fred. I have not met him yet. I think you got his autograph. And what can you tell me about your time that you've gotten to actually speak with Fred Taylor? Because him and Damon Stoudemire, the Raptors, are like two of my white whales that I'm still, trying to, and I definitely will someday, God willing. But those are two guys I still want to talk to.
Well, don't get me wrong. It wasn't in a setting like this. I didn't have the opportunity to interview him or anything. But at the same time, I was at a VIP. It was a VIP black ticket to the Jags draft a couple years ago. And I was fortunate enough. They got this like concert venue right next to the stadium. And that's where they held the draft party. And people who got tickets or were able to go had seats. Well, I was with a guy who owns season tickets on the sideline. Like they have like 15 seats like on the field. Yeah. He had 4 of them. And so we got into the VIP thing. So I'm down there mixing and mingling with people, personnel from the Jaguars organization. That's where I'm at, hanging out, eating, drinking. It was a great time. It was a wonderful experience. And before the draft, they do Jacksonville has one of their Jaguar shows or what have you, and Fred was on it with someone else and actually had that show right there. And then afterwards, he came over and started talking to a couple people. I talked to him. I got a football signed by him. And then there was another time at a game where he was at the game, and my brother and I had a chance to, meet him again, just a quick acquaintance type thing. No big in-depth thing, but he was very approachable both times. He wasn't, and you call him the white whale, but I've heard in the past that he's kind of skittish, that he's not really a go out there guy. Yeah. But I can flash back all the way to like 1990 or something. I think I even have a T-shirt I discovered here the other day that we got. The Jaguars would come into the Orlando market and try to get you to buy season tickets. And they had these like little festivals. It was like a little NFL experience with games and sponsorships. And they brought in some of the players. And I was very surprised. And I was right there up front for Fred Taylor autograph signing. So, it is what it is. He was a Gator. I'm a Gator fan. I was fortunate enough to follow his career just a few further miles down the road as a pro. And I really enjoyed watching Fred. And like I said, he was approachable and a nice guy. So, we need more of that. We hear all these stories about some athletes that go the wrong direction. We need more guys like Fred Taylor.
Yeah, and I do have this. I had to go on eBay to get it, but I do have the Fred signing there and Strictly Celeb. So I do have that, but it doesn't mean the same as getting to like meet him and be around him and be part of that. And in the same respect, I did get one of the Damon Stoudemire signed cards as well. Nice. But I want to meet them. I want to meet them. I want to actually get to be around them. And Mike, here in the studio, I got a lot of cards here. I know we talk about stuff, but I have a lot of things that I have to get moving here. And I know that it's so hard on eBay now or anywhere in any of the stores to find anything new. So I think it's probably time for me to strike while the iron's hot and get some of this stuff out there. And so all my Tampa Bay fans that are happy y'all just won a championship, I have a lot of Fred Taylor rookie patch autos, autograph cards, and jersey cards and whatnot. So
wait a second, Fred Taylor,
not Fred Taylor. I'm sorry, Leonard Fournette is what I'm saying.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I do have my Fred Taylors, but those are not for sale.
Right. No, I hear you.
But the Leonard Fournettes are here, and I definitely I just want to let the people know here that I have no problem throwing this on our video right now. Come get your Fournettes, Tampa. Let's do it. But yeah, I mean, I thought Leonard was going to be in Jacksonville for a bit. I thought he'd be the next franchise back. So I put some I put something into those cards and having that because I thought he would be there. And as you know, Mike, in our coverage of the Floridian state, we know that Jacksonville has parted ways with almost every draft pick they've had. I think they're in a 6-year span. Every player that they had drafted was gone. And, we've also seen the fact that Jadon Mickens, Blaine Gabbert, and Leonard Fournette all traveled down the coast of Florida and ended up winning a championship with Tampa Bay right after being in Jacksonville. Blaine, it's been a minute, but Jadon was there last year and Leonard was there last year. And they went from a team that was going nowhere to a team that went everywhere and made history this year.
Yeah, well, they had some bad looks. Fournette was one of them, going up into the stands and chasing, taking a swing at people. And then he and TJ Yeldon joking it up on the sideline. And, that's not professional football player behavior. And a situation like that, with the way the league approaches running backs at this point, almost as a disposable commodity, not a long-term investment. Average NFL lifespan is 3 to 5 years, and running backs, it's closer to 3. So when you find the Alvin Kamaras, the people like that, you try to keep them happy. But, conversely, they have to keep you happy. So that was the best thing, unfortunately, for Jacksonville, was to cut him loose. They couldn't get any value back from him, believe it or not. And then I don't know if he lobbied, the Bucs lobbied, what have you. He went down the road and sure enough, he was able to do something and look pretty good down the stretch doing it. So hats off to him. Maybe that's what each party needed there in Jacksonville, was a fresh start. Give him the opportunity to regrow and regenerate his career, because he's a free agent again this year.
Yeah.
He's on a 1-year deal. So, and I know that's what we're going to talk about today. And ironically, Jacksonville, the team we've been talking about, they have a top draft pick. They have another draft pick in the first round, and they have the most cap space. They can afford to sign just about anybody they want.
Yeah.
It can only go up from here. I think they got a lot of positive pieces there in Jacksonville.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of great stuff. $74.9 million they have in cap space, and the opportunity to, like you said, really sign whoever they want to. The discrepancy between them being number 1 in salary cap space to number 10 is about $50 million, just to show people how crazy it is from 1 to 10. And then there's still 22 teams after that.
Well, look what they did. They unloaded Unique Ngakoue, and he's floating around the league now because he was wanting a giant contract. Jalen Ramsey was costing him an arm and a leg and was going to continue to cost him an arm and a leg. Calais Campbell was on a fat contract. It worked out for him to go somewhere else as well. So they've made some pretty good moves recently. So hats off to them. I don't see how they could get the draft wrong. And sorry for interrupting there, but it just speaks to where Jacksonville is going. I think there's nothing but up for Jacksonville right now.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. $74.9 million, the number 1 overall pick, 2 picks in the first round, 2 picks in the second round, 1 pick in the third. You got 10 overall. There's a lot of value in Jacksonville. If anybody's going to be able to spin something around and build toward the future, maybe it's not going to show right off the bat, but you got to strike with this. And that's a problem with what's happened the last few years. And we saw Dave Campbell, who I like, go away from Jacksonville as the GM, and we saw Doug Marrone go away as the head coach. And I think what it really came down to was they were swinging and they were missing, or they were hitting on talent, but they were missing on character. And now it's time to move forward. It would be completely ironic in a crazy turn of events if Urban Meyer made a call to Leonard Fournette and said, okay, now that you won a championship, why don't you come back and be with us? I don't think it'll happen, but it would be a weird world if it did. Leonard Fournette, we said we're going to talk about free agents in the NFL by position. That's what this show is about. Florida in Focus today with Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com. We're both in the Sunshine State. That's why this entire week is named the Florida in Focus series. And obviously our Winning Fantasy Football group is there for you on Facebook for free. All you have to do is type Winning Fantasy Football and find us there. Click join. So today we are zeroing in on the free agents. Just like you and I are free to move about the Sunshine State and enjoy the beautiful weather, some Disney, some of this and some of that, these free agents are looking around trying to find where they fit in. And I think we should go to running backs first, since we had the conversation about Leonard Fournette. Let's go there. Here are your free agents, Mike, that could have a dramatic effect on fantasy football in 2021, 2022, in my opinion. Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley, Mark Ingram, Tevin Coleman, James White, Rex Burkhead, Mike Davis, Leonard Fournette, all the guys on this list. Adrian Peterson, Frank Gore, 115 years old apiece, yet they're still going at it strong. We have Lamar Miller, Devontae Booker, Ty Montgomery, Jamal Williams, Le'Veon Bell, Kalen Ballage, a lot of guys, Corey Clement, a lot of guys on this list, Josh Adams, that somebody like a Josh Adams hasn't really shown themselves yet. Aaron Jones is on this list as well out of Green Bay. Philip Lindsay's on the list. Darrell Williams of Kansas City. Mike Boone, who's filled in and done some good things here and there for Minnesota. He's out there as well. So Samaje Perrin is out there as well. And so there's so many different. Marlon Mack. I think this is really Deontay Foreman. Some people forgot about him. Gus Edwards. James Conner, believe it or not, is an unrestricted free agent right now. So the door is kind of very open. Malcolm Brown, as they try to figure out which running back's going to fit with the Rams. We have the opportunity for a lot of shakeup in fantasy because these are all names that have done something at some point. You and I didn't think the Todd Gurley project was going to work in Atlanta. That's why he got a year, in my opinion, and it didn't work. And now, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I mean, they tried it, whatever, it doesn't work. Now you move on. So they ventured a little and they didn't gain anything and they weren't involved long-term. James Conner, I would imagine, would return. I'm imagining Aaron Jones would return. I'm imagining, that some of these guys will be staying put. Well, Leonard Fournette makes sense too. But, the Kenyon Drakes of the world, as we try to figure out Chase Edmonds and all that. And there's a lot of shakeup in this free agency that can either make a situation with the Rams, like without a Malcolm Brown, could make the situation good for Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, or somebody else could come in and move that around. I mean, I just think it's a very interesting year because some guys that maybe dipped a little bit in fantasy because they were in a committee might move up, or they may move down, or they may stay the same depending on who comes in and out of town.
Well, talking about the running backs, and we spoke of A.J. Dillon on our last show, and that again boosts the value of an A.J. Dillon because Aaron Jones is a free agent, and looking at where he is contract wise, he's probably looking at like 4 years, $25 million. And I don't know that that's in the price range for the Green Bay Packers based on their current model here. I don't think they have the money here. I'm looking at the list here. I'm trying to find them. Hang on. Yeah, they're 26th on the list. They got they're like 13 million over the cap right now. So they're not going to be signing Aaron Jones, I would think. Now, there's ways that they make contracts different. They restructure them. It depends on, maybe they'll make that a new signing bonus so it'll count against this year and not the following year. There's so many ways they can work things. So it's still possible. One of the places I think Aaron Jones could end up that would be very intriguing to me would be Miami. I think Miami's missing that premier running back. You look at who they have now, Myles Gaskin. Okay, Salvin Ahmed, okay, Matt Breida, okay, DeAndre Washington. You got a lot of names, but they're not big names, and that's a problem. You got the B level. You got the B-rated list. You know, when in Hollywood or New York, that's the thing. Are you an A-list celebrity or a B-list? These are good guys, but they're B-list guys. They would welcome an Aaron Jones, who's only been like a top 10 running back the past couple years. So, you know, that would catapult A.J. Dillon up there. So, again, it's a ripple effect. If one guy leaves, everything changes around the league.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing is, you know, we look at some of these guys that, you know, I think the news of being a free agent right now is probably not the best news. And that would be Todd Gurley, Mark Ingram, maybe a Matt Breida, Carlos Hyde, that list, TJ Yeldon, Chris Thompson, Jerick McKinnon, Alfred Morris, Devontae Booker. You know, Mike, I feel like that's the list of guys that really I don't expect to be effective in fantasy moving forward. And, you know, the Frank Gores and the Adrian Petersons, you know, getting up in age and stuff like that. I don't anticipate that these are guys that are really happy they're here. That, like I said before, the Todd Gurley project didn't work. Mark Ingram, they don't really need him in Baltimore. Tevin Coleman wasn't the guy in Atlanta, and he hasn't stayed healthy enough. Carlos Hyde hasn't been able to stick anywhere he went. Matt Breida really didn't do anything. He was a relief guy in San Fran, and he hasn't caught on anywhere, and he tried to make it happen in Miami. I think Dion Lewis is on that list. Jerick McKinnon can't stay healthy. LaShawn McCoy seems to have, you know, be put in a position where he could be, you know, like a Frank Gore finishing things up. So there is a list of unrestricted free agents that I really don't anticipate to be the star guys anymore. And I think it's pretty interesting that list includes a Todd Gurley, who originally was the highest paid running back in the NFL and was considered to be the premier back.
Yeah, you know, and it is what it is. It's a business. And, you know, first and foremost, with the average life expectancy, like we talked about at the running back position, I take a look at a guy like Kenyon Drake, and he may have been a one-hit wonder. He went from Miami to Arizona, looked spectacular. Then he couldn't stay healthy. Then Chase Edmonds looked a lot better. And now he's in a contract situation where, you know, these teams are looking, they're like, well, I can take this rookie with a lot more upside. He'll be on a rookie contract for a couple years, so I can afford that, versus this guy who's been flirting with the B list there. Why would I pay him A-list money? I take a look at a Chris Carson. Is a guy who struggles to stay healthy. Trust me, I'm all over Chris Carson in dynasty leagues. I'd hate to see him make a change from Seattle, but they got a committee thing going on. Carlos Hyde, who's 150 years old, I'm not sure he's coming back, but they do have a DJ Dallas. They do have other options there. I take a look at a Phillip Lindsay. Well, it's pretty obvious what Denver thinks of him by bringing in Melvin Gordon. Phillip Lindsay was that James Robinson of his day, came out of nowhere from the University of Colorado, hometown guy. I'm not sure if he was drafted or a late round pick, but he stepped right up and he took command of that role as a running back. And then what does Denver do to reward him? They bring in Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette, we talked about, Le'Veon Bell. You know, I don't know what's left in the tank. Is he still an asset in Kansas City? A lot of times these teams will come to a low ball negotiation with some of these has-been guys. There's a lot of pluses. If they're a good character guy, like you pointed out before, they know the system. You're not making a system change. That's good. And maybe he's not going to be the star he once was, but maybe he can fit in nice. And that's what Tampa proved to be a great formula this year. Guys that fit, guys that are willing to sacrifice, guys that are willing to be team players first. That's what happened in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, you know, and I think that, you know, Tampa just kind of, that's why I would anticipate Leonard Fournette staying there. I think if I were him, I'd want to stay there. But where does his value lie? I mean, let's talk about, I mean, we know that some of these guys may not catch on. We know that Todd Gurley's and, you know, Mark Ingram might have a little bit. Tevin Coleman might have a little bit. But I don't anticipate Todd Gurley getting it done. I think Kenyon Drake could make sense in some places. You know, I think that putting him in a place like Houston, maybe that could work out with him a little bit. But, you know, I think ultimately, let's talk about the names that we think could really make a splash in free agency that will help out the fantasy football world. I think Chris Carson is on that list. I think Aaron Jones, that we've spoken about, is on that list. I think, you know, also James Conner And, I would venture to say on that list as well would be Leonard Fournette, that, these are serviceable backs that I could see starting or being, that marquee guy. What do you think about that? Because obviously, as we look through and sift through this list, you got to look at the marquee players that can make an impact. And I think that, at least for me, that's a big bulk of my list right there is those names.
Well, unfortunately, what we are talking about is the running back position, and the current temperature in the room in the NFL is they're a dime a dozen. Again, like I said before, 3 to 5 years, maybe 3 years out of a serviceable back. So teams aren't willing to step up. That's the general attitude. However, you look at teams when they are able to put together a dynamic duo, and I couldn't say anything more about or less, about Fournette and Jones. They were able to manage that load down the stretch. So I'm always counterintuitive with these things. For years, I was on wide receivers, but now everybody's sexy on wide receivers. Everybody likes chicks dig the long ball is what they say in baseball. So, the wide receivers, and there's a large class of free agent wide receivers this year. And, they're trying to outweigh those things. The wide receiver, if he was your friend, he'd be the flamboyant one. He'd be the stylish one. He'd be the one sporting his shades indoors all the time. He would be the one that's way out there. And think about these guys. T.O., if you think about the characters of those players, and that's just comes with it. That's just the territory a lot of times with a marquee player, because they're trying to market their name, their brand. That's how they're going to make money past football. And it's a great marketing strategy. It's a great business strategy if those guys can stay right. But, running backs, the NFL teams just aren't willing to step up and pay top money. It's going to be rare and hard to see. This year may be an exception with Najee Harris out of Alabama, but I don't think people are going to spend a high draft pick on a running back anymore, like a Fournette, because look where the end result was. You burn like a number 5 pick, I think, or a number 7 pick, and 3 years later, he's gone. What have you done for your franchise? You could have gotten a franchise quarterback with that pick. Yeah. So, there's a lot to be said, but, I think running backs, unfortunately, aren't going to get paid what they need to get paid.
And I think the thing, too, is a guy like Mike Davis, who filled in nicely for Christian McCaffrey, but now, he's a guy that could be forgotten in the fold. So I think, you really got to pay attention to this, but it is sometimes from zero to hero, and it does go the other way around with Todd Gurley. He went from the guy to let's put him in Atlanta to see to, wow, like we'd rather play our 4th string guy than put this guy out there anymore. So Atlanta's got that opening, you know what I mean? And Carolina may need that backup to Christian McCaffrey, but you look at certain teams out there and we look around the league at some of these teams that would need the help. You mentioned Miami. I agree with Rex Burkhead and James White not having Tom Brady there anymore. Where do they fit in? And New England spent that high draft pick on Sony Michel, which they typically don't do. We saw them get N'Keal Harry in the first round as a wide receiver. And the year before that, Sony Michel at running back. Neither one of those guys is really shaped up. The Jets need the help. Baltimore has Lamar Jackson, so they really don't necessarily need it, but there are a bunch of teams, the Houstons of the world. Jacksonville needs a serviceable backup. So we look at things like that. Denver, do you re-sign Phillip Lindsay? Do you put everything into Melvin Gordon? You probably need a 1-2 punch with him. So that's something else to look at. Vegas with Josh Jacobs seemed to be good, but then the Chargers kind of almost have an open door with that too. So looking throughout the league, there's a lot of teams that need the help. And, the Giants certainly need somebody behind Saquon. Philadelphia has had Miles Sanders, but that's kind of an up in the air thing. Washington needs the help. Chicago with David Montgomery has been good, but they don't have that other side of the punch. The Tariq Cohen and that marriage that used to be there is not really there. And then, like I mentioned, Atlanta, I think, has the biggest glaring need for a running back right now. And then, Tampa's got to figure out, do we bring back Leonard Fournette? I would anticipate they do. Arizona has Chase Edmonds. Do you let him take the reins and let Kenyon Drake go for good? The Rams have 3 guys. They got some guys in free agency. What are they going to do? San Fran doesn't have a determined guy. Seattle doesn't have a determined guy. So, as much as we talk about that there are a bunch of running backs out there, the Seattles, the San Frans, the Atlantas, and so on, they really have a need right now. And there's some names that are going to be shifting around the country. And, I would anticipate somebody's going to make their mark. But I would say of all the names on that list, I would anticipate and expect my top names of Aaron Jones and James Conner to stay put. And then, from there, I would say, beyond that there'll be some movement, but I would say Leonard Fournette will probably stay put as well. So I think the guys with the best fantasy value right now, I would think they would stay. And maybe the ones to watch that could have fantasy value leaving is your Chris Carson and maybe your Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, sometimes it's just a matter of personal taste. It's a matter of flavor. It matters what type of offense are you looking for? Does this guy have to excel at pass blocking, or can he just offer the median in pass blocking efficiency? Because that's a big part of it. If you can't pass block, you're not on the field. I mean, that's just the way it is. They'll bring you along if you're a rookie in that, but they're not going to settle for bringing a guy in who can't pass block. Then he has to fit your scheme. Do you need a Le'Veon Bell type guy when Le'Veon Bell was in his prime? And I say was because I don't get to see Le'Veon Bell like I did in the past before he had all these changes. So, a Todd Gurley, how much gas is left in that tank? I like the Mike Davis situation. I would do everything I could to re-sign him. I think you're right with Leonard Fournette in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's only got like 27 of the cap to spend, but I could see him going on another 1-year deal. Why not? You got Tom Brady there. Are you kidding? I would take a $5 million deal, even if I knew I could get 7 down the road. Because you know why? Because Tom's doing the same thing. He's using that Michael Jordan formula. He doesn't have to be the highest paid guy. You know why? He's getting paid by Gillette and everybody else off the field. How much is enough? If 100 million, 110 million, what's the difference? I'll lose to 10 million and I'll go win a Super. These guys, when they get to that point, like a Leonard Fournette, where he's had a taste of being on the street.
Yeah.
He's in the penthouse. He goes to the outhouse. Then boom, he's in a nicer penthouse again. That doesn't happen very often. Guys that are recouping and rebuilding their career like that aren't going to let it happen to him again. If he has an opportunity to stay in Tampa Bay with the GOAT, he's going to do it.
Yeah, I think he plays 1 year for $1 if he has to be
exactly.
So, if you do what you got to do to win a championship, and you got to make it about the team, not about yourself. Quarterback position, free agency. I'm going to name some names that I think are probably not going to catch on. I would say the Josh Dobbs, Josh has been in Pittsburgh, in Jacksonville, back to Pittsburgh. The Joe Webbs, the Tim Boyles. There's some names on here. Now, here's something, though. C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins, both guys who were drafted in the same draft by San Fran that have backed up Jimmy Garoppolo, and they've needed them every single year except for the year that they went to the championship game. So those are two guys that you would imagine they're going to have to make a choice and do something with those guys. They're cheap. They're very cheap right now to put onto a team. That's something to look to. But of the names that could fit somewhere as Jameis Winston, potential backup somewhere, New Orleans is interesting because New Orleans had last year, all their guys were free agents. Drew Brees came back. Teddy Bridgewater went to Carolina, and Taysom Hill, they brought him back. And then, now you have Jameis Winston. And what do you do with Jameis Winston? Do you bring him back or not? Colt McCoy is still around in the NFL as well, believe it or not, folks. At the ripe age of 34, was with the Giants. But, your Andy Daltons, your Ryan Fitzpatricks, your Mitch Trubisky's. Mitch is a guy young in the game, hasn't caught on. He wasn't the guy right off the bat in Chicago. Then he was the guy. Then he lost it. Then he got it back. Then he lost it. Then he got it back. It's been schizophrenia between him and Nick Foles, and none of it's worked out for the most part. The defense has kept them in it, and David Montgomery has obviously done a good job in fantasy. So in reality, he's getting yards and he's scoring. But I think the biggest names before we get to the big name, I think the names are, where does Andy Dalton land? Where does Tyrod Taylor, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Mitch Trubisky, Jacoby Brissett, and Cam Newton, because the project did not work in New England. So let's talk about those names.
Yeah, I think Cam Newton is an ideal fit in Washington for the Washington football team. They need a short stopover guy. They need a guy that can play, a guy that can have some swagger, a guy that's not afraid to call his own number. The guy can take command on the field. And I would think that would be a short stay. The New England thing didn't work out on a short stay. And that's the benefit of this situation for both the player and the team on these short-term deals like this, these stopgap approaches. They're like, well, we have just about everything else. We can't go out and get this marquee guy, but we can get Cam Newton. I like Cam Newton above most of the names you said, but of the names that you said, I think the most valuable signing would be a guy that could sign back with his own team. Is going to be one not many people are going to think about, and that's Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I think Ryan Fitzpatrick needs to stay in Miami to offer that tutelage to the new quarterback, Tua. What better to have, a 15-year vet, a Harvard guy, a guy that can chuck the ball, a guy who's been there and can beat, and he's willing to take that role. He knows he's not the guy. He knows Tua is the guy, and he's willing to accept that role at this point in his career. That's like having a tool for Tua in Tua's pocket that he can use anytime. There is nothing that can beat experience in the NFL. No matter what you do, what you say, it's different. You were at Alabama. You won national championships. You did the same in your whole career, high school, everything. Yeah. This is the NFL. It's a little bit different. It's good to have that confident voice next to you. And one more that I think is or two more that I think is interesting. Jameis Winston, I think he's going to stay in New Orleans. The reason why I think they're going to sign him in New Orleans again is that stopgap situation. Don't get me wrong. They're going to be in the play for some quarterbacks. There's going to be 10 to 15 quarterback changes at least in the NFL. So that's almost half the teams. You think Jacksonville, New York Jets, Atlanta, Carolina, Denver, New England, Washington, Chicago, Indianapolis, and then, of course, Pittsburgh is going to be looking for somebody there as well. Pittsburgh is going to be in trouble because, well, they got Ben Roethlisberger, and they know they can't count on his backup and Mason Rudolph. So they're in a precarious situation there as well. And one other interesting pick, I think Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has a chance to be the guy again. It's not going to happen in Dallas. I think they're going to bring Dak back. But look at Andy Dalton going to Denver. Drew Lock got I would say, thrown into the situation. He reminds me a little bit about Jay Cutler. He has the swagger. He's just not delivering on the field. I like the attitude. I like the aggressiveness. I like the confidence. But don't go shooting 6 shooters when you're down by 2 scores and you're on a 4-11 team or whatever. Just go with the flow. He's a good quarterback. So maybe that Andy Dalton influence, maybe having him take a step back or give him a battle in camp, maybe that would do good for Drew Lock.
Yeah, and I think because Denver makes so many mistakes at quarterback, and I covered Mitch when he was at Carolina, and I'm not trying to knock him. I think that Denver could be in a place to make the wrong decision, which would be to sign Mitch Trubisky. And I could see them doing it, and I don't agree with it. I don't think it would be good by any stretch of the imagination, but I could see them making that mistake. And I think the best thing for Dak, which I wanted, I was holding him to the end because he's obviously the name on this, is I think that he should see what everybody else thinks because, as Floyd Little told me a long time ago, there's a lot of pretty girls at the dance and you want to dance with them all, but you end up dancing with the one that wants to dance with you, right? There's 3 pretty girls on the wall. You walk up and you dance with the one that wants to dance with you. They're all pretty, but one of them's going to say, you know what? You're attractive, you're handsome. She's going to put her hand out. You dance with her and you never think about the other ones again. If I'm Dak, I want to see who wants to dance with me because Jerry Jones hasn't been dancing with me. He hasn't been spinning me around. He hasn't been dipping me. He hasn't been showing me the salsa. He's just been showing me the silent treatment. And to be completely honest, if I came to the dance with Jerry, I may not be leaving with Jerry. So if I'm Dak Prescott, I'm going to really take the time because, Mike, you brought up the point that there are teams that are looking for quarterbacks. There are teams around the country. I don't think he would want to go with the Jets, but if I'm Dak, I can go learn from Bill Belichick in New England. That's something there. You're not necessarily going to get paid as high, but that's somewhere to look. I think Atlanta is a place to look and the talent that you have there and that you get to play inside there as well. I think that, if you're Dak, you can, the Chicagos of the world can call you. The Washingtons of the world can call you. The Philadelphias of the world can call you. I don't know if you want to deal with the Jalen stuff right now, but there's that. If you're Dak, Denver has Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy out there for you ready to go. They have Kelvin Harmon as well. So there's a lot of great young talent that you could throw to in Denver and have a good old time out there. And so, there's a lot of teams that would make sense in Indianapolis as well if you're Dak Prescott. So if I'm Dak, I'm really going to take the time to hear what other people have to say, to venture, to learn, and to really figure things out. I mean, there could be a crazy turn of a situation where Pittsburgh makes a play and says, you know what, we know Ben's on his way out, and we're going to bring Dak in, and we'll bring back James Conner, and we got these other people, we'll make it work. So if I'm Dak Prescott, I'm really going to look at the talent around the country, and I'm really going to think about, do I want to be in Dallas? Like, do they want to dance with me? You know, or do they want to dance with me, or am I dancing with somebody else? Because right now there's a lot of teams, as we've mentioned, that need a quarterback, and Dak is the best one out there. He is worth giving the top dollar to of everybody out there by far. And so I would love to see him actually milk it, take the time, and let his agent have some fun with this, because Jerry Jones has enough money to live 10 lifetimes, and he's been waiting way too long on a situation that should have been wrapped up a long time ago.
Yeah, Jerry's that guy who he stays in the Texas Hold'em round too long. Like, he'll keep running the bet up, and he's got like a pair of twos. And you're like, what are you doing? You know, he should have signed. This should have happened a while ago. I think they were gambling that Dak had caught lightning in a bottle. Look at the guys around him. Dak goes in the fourth round, right? Yeah. Look at other guys that went in the first round, the first and second picks, Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. One just got traded, and the other one's probably going to get traded or signed somewhere else. I mean, it is what it is. Look at the investment those teams made in guys. Now you take a look at the guys that we talked about that are available. I'd rather have a guy where I know what I'm getting from him. I'm going to draft a guy, and I'm going to continue to make those gambles. But for now, my business model is I need to take a proven commodity, because the only way to win in the NFL is if your quarterback's on a discount. If you got your quarterback like Dak, who's probably going to be on the franchise tag at $38 million this year, that's not a winning formula. You cannot overpay the quarterback. You need to look back to when Seattle made a Super Bowl run. They still had Russell Wilson on a short contract, a rookie contract. They were able to spend that money on the defense. They were able to spend that money elsewhere. The business model does not work, and Jerry stayed in the game too long. He should have folded and signed him long ago, but that's okay. He's going to deal with it, and they're going to deal with it, and Dallas will sign Dak on the franchise tag. Watch.
Yeah, you know, and I think it's ridiculous. And I think, you know, if I'm Dak and that happens to me again, I want out completely. I think if Jacksonville didn't have the number one pick, they should make a play. You know, with Urban Meyer and having this opportunity, why the heck not? Dak is young in the NFL, and, you know, he's got the opportunity to have plenty of upside. He's just gotten started. I love his story. I didn't think he should be the second highest paid behind Pat Mahomes, and I stick by that until I see another year or two. But I do think that he's the best free agent option out there at quarterback. And the other two guys that I really think could land somewhere and mean something are a guy that I covered in college at NC State, Jacoby Brissett, and then Tyrod Taylor as well, whose season was ended in a very abrupt and strange way. So I still think Tyrod has something in this, and I think Jacoby does too.
No, that makes sense. Unfortunately, you know, they're not the flavor of the week. You know, Tyrod's been gone all year. It's, what have you done for me lately? I know you were hurt, but I didn't get any return. You still got paid, but I didn't get anything back. So we're going to reevaluate this situation here, because now we got this flash in a pan here with Justin Herbert, and I think he's going to continue. So the Tyrod Taylor is a you know, sticky situation there. And I get Jacoby Brissett. I think he's a fine human being. I think he's a great athlete. I think he makes himself a great NFL player with his character and so forth. But at the same time, you know, he's A-, B-list guy, you know, and again, they're looking for teams are looking for backup potential guys when you're talking about Tyrod Taylor, when you're talking about Jacoby Brissett. Nobody is saying we're going to give this guy the keys to the brand new Cadillac and we're going on vacation and trust him. Nobody's doing that. They'll bring these guys in. They have value, because you never know what can happen in the NFL. You never know when a draft pick isn't going to hit. You never know. I mean, you got over a third of the teams, maybe half a team making a quarterback change. That's huge.
Yeah, you know, and I think Jacoby's one of those guys that can step in and be a starter that can help you get to a 7-9 season. Like, I do believe that. So I know it's not perfect, but I still think that it's value driven. And, if you're in a league where you have a team quarterback, like we play in the Wake Up Call leagues that we have, you look to where, okay, who's the backup in case this guy goes down? Is there anybody behind him? Do I have any, because if you have a Jacoby Brissett behind you, or you have a Tyrod Taylor, or you have an Andy Dalton, you have an opportunity to make a play and make a push, even when things don't go well. Or if you play a week 17 and that's your championship week and it's not week 16, and your starter sitting, if I got Jacoby Brissett, I'm going to feel better about that than I'm going to feel in a lot of other situations. So you got to always be thinking 2 steps ahead, unless, as Mike said, you'll be 1 step behind. So to go to tight ends, we'll go to wide receivers last here. The tight end list is long. We have Rob Gronkowski, who, as long as he's in the NFL, he'll be with Tom Brady. I think that's clear to say. But we have Rob Gronkowski, we have Hunter Henry, we have Jared Cook, the Tyler Kroft and Tyler Eifert, that both played together in Cincinnati. Tyler Kroft was injured in Buffalo. Didn't really see a lot. Dawson Knox had to go out there. Tyler Eifert didn't work in Jacksonville. I can't imagine that they would keep him there. James O'Shaughnessy's been in Jacksonville for a while. I like him. Nice Irish guy. I don't think Urban Meyer is necessarily going to keep him there. Mercedes Lewis, I can tell you this. I can tell you I don't know why, but I was in the Jacksonville airport a couple weeks ago, and I was leaving Jacksonville, and Mercedes was coming in. That's all I'm saying. So Mercedes Lewis, he's on the list coming out of Green Bay. Maybe he makes a play to come back and be under Urban Meyer. Gerald Everett, who's been with Tyler Higbee and hasn't worked with the Rams, he's a free agent. Jordan Reed, at 112 years old, he is a free agent from San Francisco. Richard Rodgers, who played for Green Bay and for Philadelphia, he's now a free agent. We have Jonnu Smith, who at 25 years old is a free agent, and he was supposed to take the reins from Delaney Walker, but he hasn't shown up to really be the guy like Delaney was for a time in Tennessee. So he's out there, could be on the chopping block. And then we have Jeremy Sprinkle of Washington, Robert Tonyan of Green Bay, who wasn't great but had his moments. So there is a long list of guys out there. And outside of Rob Gronkowski, I'm going to be honest with you, the Cooks and the Henrys and the Eiferts and the Crofts and so on and so forth, I think any one of these guys could end up literally anywhere except for Gronk.
Yeah, it's an intriguing thing, and like we talked about the ripple effect, I'll hit the the elephant in the room right first calf out of the chute here. Hunter Henry, I think he's going to stay. I think they're going to work something out. I think he's going to stay in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Look behind him. If he leaves, go get Donald Parham. Trust me. We talked about him in the Alliance League, and he did have a couple nice plays when he was able to get on the field. Now, why would Hunter Henry come back if Donald Parham is still there? Because that's that magic punch. You can go back to New England days, and I know people are going to cringe when I say it, but Aaron Hernandez, Rob Gronkowski, back and forth. A Philadelphia thing with Ertz and God, why am I skipping his name? No, Dallas Goedert. Yeah. That 1-2 punch. And then if one guy goes down, you still have a premium target at tight end. So I would be surprised if Hunter Henry went anywhere else. Jonnu Smith, I could see him going to Arizona. Quick, name me the Arizona tight end. You can't. Yeah. Dan Arnold, Daryl Dawkins, Daniels, Max Williams. Who are these guys? I wouldn't know them if I bumped into them in the airport. I wouldn't know who these guys were other than the fact that they're enormous dudes. And I think you know what? I think that a Jonnu Smith ends up in Arizona. I just see that. They need a guy, a fresh start. Kyler Murray, he could be the safety valve. I think that works out great for him. Gerald Everett, I can see him taking his blocking skills to Carolina. Carolina has Ian Thomas. Ian Thomas is hit or miss. I don't think Ian Thomas blocks as well as Gerald Everett does. And Gerald Everett can still catch passes. Gronk is going to stay with Brady. That's a given. He's going to sign a short deal to stay there. Jared Cook, maybe he's back, 150 years old. I still like, and I like the fact that he hit the field late in the year. Mo Alley Cox, the guy really wasn't a football player, and he's showed up at the end of the year. So only in the deepest leagues, only in the dynasty format or keeper format. You're not going to draft this guy in a redraft league unless something changes in Indianapolis. Trey Burton, Is he gonna continue to play? Is he gonna continue to show up? And he seems to be like a scheme guy that needs to fit in the right scheme.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and like we talked about, there could be some ripple effects in the tight ends.
Yeah, I think another thing too, two guys that aren't on the free agency list, but just could be moving because of Gronk. Either Cameron Brate or OJ Howard. I don't see Tampa keeping all three of them. So I think that we really.
I do.
You what?
Oh, I do. I think it's a good problem to have. I think Tom Brady will step in and say, no, I want these guys. Tom Brady likes OJ Howard. And I know he likes Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate's a Harvard guy like Fitzpatrick. And then you take a look at Gronk. Gronk's not going anywhere. So, yeah, they'll carry all three of those guys.
And I think it's interesting to see if they could do anything with that. If a Brate, but at some point, Brate and Howard, if not both, when Tom Brady does retire when he's 87 years old, I would imagine that those guys are going to move forward. But you look at Atlanta, and I told you I didn't like Hayden Hurst when he was in Baltimore. I had no desire to think anything of him in Atlanta. That didn't work. Austin Hooper didn't work leaving Atlanta after finally having a good season and some change. And he went to Cleveland and did nothing. David Njoku's not working there. So I would look for Cleveland to make a play for some of these guys too, to make the call to Hunter Henry, to make the call for Jonnu Smith. Atlanta has to make some of these calls, and they have to make a call on Matt Ryan's replacement because that's going to happen sooner than later. They don't have a running back. They don't have a future at quarterback. They have Calvin Ridley, but they're not going to have, Julio Jones forever. So I think Atlanta's really in this identity crisis of their offense, and you now have a time to do this. If I'm Hunter Henry, though, and I got Cleveland calling me, and I got the Chargers wanting me to stay, and I got Atlanta's not happening. That's a no for me. But for Cleveland, they really need to figure out where are we going with this right now, because there's guys that are out there that can be game changers at tight end. Are we going to leave them out and just keep trying in this situation? Jacksonville is primed for it, right? Jacksonville drafts a guy who really never sees the field. And, within the last couple of years, James O'Shaughnessy, they bring him in when they feel like it. There's other guys that they've literally pissed off because they call them in the 11th hour when they need a free agent. And so Jacksonville really has none of this. So I think, your Hunter Henrys, your Jonnu Smith. Listen, you played against Jonnu Smith for how many seasons now? And Delaney Walker. Call Tennessee. Say, listen, we need you to come over here, Jonnu. He's not going to cost a ton of money. He's a guy to look at. Mo Alley Cox, like you said, he might be deep on stuff, but he's a guy to potentially look at, and nothing that Jacksonville has used at tight end has worked. So I think Jacksonville, Atlanta, Cleveland, these are the guys that need to be making the phone calls right now. And they really need to be seeing, with the free agents that are out there, your Hunter Henrys, your Mo Alley Coxes, your Jeremy Sprinkles, your Robert Tonyans, guys that are just starting to come on a little bit, like those guys. Not a bad time to make a call. And for Jacksonville, just stop calling these guys that, are kind of, they've been around the block and it's just not working. Start calling some of these guys that are 2 to 3 years in, right outside of the rookie contract. Maybe they had an okay year where they were like a Tanyan, but he's now free to move about the country, and give him a phone call and give him an opportunity, because you can't be in a position where you whiff again. And Jacksonville has not had dare I say this? Because I'm going to give Mercedes some credit, but take Mercedes out, take Kyle Brady out. Jacksonville hasn't had a tight end in between, and they haven't had a tight end after. So the reality of where they are right now is you're probably not going to draft one, I would expect, but you need to go out here and see what you can do to bring somebody in, because as you and I have talked about, there's those tight ends at the top, right? The George Kittles, I think Dallas Goedert's going to eventually rise up there, the Travis Kelce's, the Rob Gronkowski's. We know they're all up there, the Mark Andrews. And then after that, there's a giant dip. Well, some of those guys that fill those gaps, they're available right now. So the time to make the call is right now, and to not wait for the draft. Get somebody who's had some experience but is younger as well. Looking at the wide receivers, as Mike and I are here, Florida in focus with you. We're both in the Sunshine State. Winning Fantasy Football is how you get us both all the time, 24/7. Go to Facebook, type in Winning Fantasy Football, and click join. It is that simple. and you have us every Wednesday in the Fantasy Football Power Hour on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, the home of all of our fantasy leagues in Central and Upstate New York, located on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, and curbside pickup, takeout, and delivery. You can get to them by calling 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat. Mike is my signature guest for this Florida in Focus on Wednesday, February 24th. And I'm always honored and privileged to have one of my good friends and my favorite person in fantasy football to be hanging out with here. So our final piece, Mike, I saved it till last because it's the juiciest part of the meat, so to speak. And that is the wide receiver group. I'm just going to name AJ Green, Allen Robinson, T.Y. Hilton. These are number one guys, right? These are guys that have been number one on a team. AJ Green, Allen Robinson, T.Y. Hilton, Larry Fitzgerald, Sammy Watkins, Marvin Jones at times has had to step in at number one. Willie Snead is also out there. Keelan Cole and D.D. Westbrook of Jacksonville are out there. Will Fuller, the fifth, when he's healthy. He's obviously bringing a lot. Chris Conley from Jacksonville, who's never been used, right there. He's available. Zay Jones available again. Antonio Brown, who went from craziness to more craziness to, oh my gosh, is this guy okay? To it's not funny anymore, to maybe somebody should call somebody and get him to sit down with someone, to now he's a NFL champion. He's out there. Curtis Samuel, who was never consistent in Carolina. Des Bryant, who was just with Baltimore. Mohamed Sanu, Tavon Austin, Juju Smith-Schuster, Nelson Aguilar, Philip Dorsett. Every single year we say this name. Josh Gordon is out there as well. And Chris Godwin, Jadon Mickens, Kenny Galladay. I mentioned D.D. Westbrook, Josh Reynolds is there. Tim Patrick, who had to step in Denver, did some good things. There is a long, long list of available wide receivers. Greg Ward, who was a quarterback at Houston, who won the first AAC championship. And I still have that video of him kissing the trophy. There's a lot of guys out there, and there's guys on their last leg, Mike. Allen Robinson is on his second to last leg. AJ Green, T.Y. Hilton, Fitz, last leg. Sammy, maybe the last leg. Marvin Jones, maybe the last leg. Rashad Perriman, same situation. So, I mean, this is kind of an open field here. And Will Fuller, the fifth, if they don't bring him back, then Houston will have pissed off their quarterback, have no running back, and lost both of their main receivers.
This is the sexiest group, the wide receivers like we talked about. But at the same time, I can see it being unsexy in activity. What I mean is I think a lot of guys are going to stay put because the grass isn't always greener. And because there are so many guys out there, again, this is going to result in at least half the teams shuffling some wide receivers some way or another. And don't forget, we haven't even talked about the rookies that are coming in, and there are a handful of excellent rookie wide receivers in this draft class. And just like the running backs, they like them young. They like them fast. They like them with good hands, big hands. I mean, the way the NFL has these metrics down, but every once in a while, a guy sneaks through like a Tyreek Hill that runs a 4.29, doesn't hold all the measurables, but he's fast. And that's what you're seeing in the NFL. These guys, as they get a little older, some of them lose a little speed. But Des Bryant apparently doesn't. If you ask him, he was showing 40 times before he was signed at ridiculous rate. So I don't know if it was a 38-yard dash or a 40-yard dash, but he was doing good for his age. Look, I think Allen Robinson is going to stay put in Chicago. I think Chris Godwin would be a fool to leave. He just changed numbers for Tom Brady. So yeah. I would think he would stay. I think Kenny Galladay is going to stay. They got a refresh situation. They got some excellent draft picks as part of that Stafford trade. Goff, maybe that's what he needed, was a fresh start. So that's something to look at. Will Fuller, I think he's going to end up staying, but that depends on what they do with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson wants out. They don't want to trade him. There's a lot of guff between Watson and the league office. So that will be interesting to see. And then, of course, I think Corey Davis, that's a name, nobody knew who Corey Davis was. He was the number one receiver for several years on the Titans, and nobody could tell you who he was, and he was the number one receiver on a team in the NFL. There was something wrong with that. Well, you know what happened? This last year, he was in a contract year as a free agent. He put up the best numbers of his career. Isn't that amazing how that works sometimes? Yeah. So there's talk that he's going to go with the Ravens. I don't see that, but there is talk. I think if that happens, you say bye-bye to Des Bryant because they're looking at two fast guys, one 6 years, 8 years younger. They're going to go with the younger guy. I think of Curtis Samuel, who had a pretty good year, had a horrible preseason last year, but that was COVID affected, I think, ended up blossoming. But he could end up with a team like the Giants, who were looking for another guy to fill a role, not necessarily be the number one guy, but to fill that role. And a couple guys, last but not least, T.Y. Hilton. I think his days are done in Indianapolis. I think they're moving on to younger models. They're in a rebuild. They got an excellent line there. There's talk that he may end up in Jacksonville, and I think that is a very interesting call. I like the wide receiver call in Jacksonville. I like the youth movement, but you take a guy like Chris Conley out of the situation. Now you bring in T.Y. Hilton. If I'm a Jag fan, I'm real excited about that. Marvin Jones, I think his days are done. There's talks that he may wind up with the Colts, which would be a good situation. He's not old. He's not young. He's somewhere as a tweener. But Juju Smith-Schuster, I talked about it on the last show. He's getting open tweets from DeAndre Hopkins asking him to come out to Arizona. And Juju was a guy who I don't think is comfortable being the number one target. He had AB there and he flourished as the number two. Well, yeah, if they're going to double cover somebody, they're going to double cover AB back in the day. Yeah. Now Juju's facing the number 2 to number 3 corner there. So there's some advantages. And if you bring that same advantage and put Juju in the slot, you put him on the field instead of Christian Kirk, or Larry Fitzgerald's probably gone now as well. He's a free agent, but at 155 years old, I don't see him lacing them up anymore. So there's some opportunity for some guys to move. Another opportunity for Juju Smith, by the way, would be the New York Jets. They're looking for somebody to fill a role. And they know the expectation wouldn't be for him to come in and be the number one guy, but act like a number one guy.
Yeah, and I think, and you bring up a ton of great points. I think Juju is better off as a number 2. He needs to be on a team where he's not getting the best corner to cover him. He needs to be in a situation where there's another guy on the other side that can handle the business so he can get his. Like that guy can get 11, he can get 10. That guy can get, 13 touchdowns, he can get 12 or he can get 11. He needs to have that. I don't think Juju is a number one guy, so he does make sense to go to a place like Arizona. I think the Jets are in a great situation because, there's guys that may not be that expensive, right? Your Allen Robinsons, your Marvin Jones, your Corey Davises, your Willie Sneads, guys like that might not be that expensive. I think in Jacksonville's case, I think they will part ways with Chris Conley, which is sad because I said when I interviewed him in the locker room, I thought he had one of the best minds. The way that he spoke to me about ideas and nuances, I kind of said to him, like basically, why are you not the leader of this locker room? Like you should be the leader of this locker room. So, to me, I think Keelan Cole to let him go. I think Laviska Shenault being there and DJ Chark being there, I would see them probably potentially bring back a D.D. Westbrook. But think about that. If you have Trevor Lawrence and you have D.D. Chark, Laviska, T.Y. Hilton, James Robinson, and that's your offense under Urban Meyer, like, hello. So, it almost feels like a college one because you're going to have a bunch of these young receivers in it. So, I think Jacksonville kind of has to let go of a couple. And I think holding on to DD is probably their best bet. Making a play for T.Y. Hilton would be good because that doesn't happen every day. I think making a play if you don't get T.Y. to go for Will Fuller the 5th. The only problem with teams that are going after Will Fuller is that he is a guy that gets injured and he's not your dominant one. So Kelvin Ridley, would Will Fuller make sense in Atlanta? Yeah, he could be there, but then you got 2 2s and no 1. So, I think really in Atlanta as they try to move forward without Julio Jones, where do you go? I don't think you go to Allen Robinson. I don't think you go to AJ Green. I think you go to Fitz. I think if you're Atlanta, you have to draft somebody. But Antonio Brown and the Jadon Mickens of the world, it makes perfect sense for them to ask to come back. I can't imagine Chris Godwin going anywhere else than staying in Tampa Bay. That would be crazy. Alan Lazard, if you want to piss off Aaron Rodgers, go ahead and let him go, and he'll go friggin' ballistic on you. But, so I would imagine he's going to stay there too. But Juju really needs to humble himself and say, you know what? I'm a number 2. So I need to go somewhere where I can play that. And I don't think it's going to be in Green Bay. So Arizona does make some sense to that. And there could be something there for you. Think about this too. I know the rich get richer, but Kansas City, depending on how much money he wants, Kansas City, you got Tyreek Hill, Mr. Speed Demon. You put him over there. You let Sammy go to a place like Indy, and now you got another opening. So I think there are places for him to go. I think it's ironic and funny that him and Antonio Brown are both free agents at the same time, but Antonio doesn't have a lot more that's going to be happening, I don't think. And I mean, he's going to be a third guy, and Juju's still number 2. So where they go, I don't imagine to be the same place. But, it's going to be interesting to see some of these guys, if they take a pay cut and they try to find their way onto a team, like sneak onto a team like Tampa. Remember, New Orleans had a ton of issues with Michael Thomas being out and really not having anybody that was staying healthy and that could back him up. So they need to make some plays out there for the Smith-Schusters, the Sanus, the Des Bryants, who they originally had talked to allegedly, the Chris Conleys, the Will Fuller, the Fitz. He could make sense there. The John Rosses, who are supposed to be fast but never caught on in Cincinnati, the Allen Robinsons, the T.Y. Hiltons, like the Marvin Jones. If Drew Brees is going to keep being your quarterback for another year or two or whatever's going to happen from here, whoever your guy's going to be, if you're New Orleans, you were extremely depleted at a time where we didn't even know if you were going to have a wide receiver. So Atlanta, New Orleans, Jacksonville is going to let go of a couple, but it's like there's a lot of teams on the clock right now that really need some help. Baltimore is going to work with their youth. They're going to do that. I think Buffalo needs one more guy. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a play for T.Y. Hilton. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a play for Juju because they have Stephon. So, I think there's a lot of places these guys could end up, and I think there's going to be an immediate impact. And when I just said Juju to Buffalo, I got this like really excited feeling, which is either me thinking it's really going to happen or it's the Bills Mafia tapping into my veins and pumping that in going, Dan, you just came up with a great idea. Let's make that happen. So, I do think there's going to be some movement and it's going to be fun. And the wide receiver group is really going to have a dramatic effect on what the 1, 2, 3, 4 deep is going to look like in the NFL, Mike, because I think teams are going to look, dare I say it, maybe drastically different. If not, I think a lot of teams in the NFL are going to be moving around their cups, and we're not going to know where the ball's going inside of what cup, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that's the name of the game. You got this cap, you got to stay under. That's involved, and then you got to put a certain value on players. And it's almost sickening, but you got to address it much like you would a retail store, like a grocery store or something. That this product keeps selling, and then it gets a while, that product slows down a bit. The numbers aren't as good, so you're trying to hit that little magic area in between. Either you drafted real well as a rookie, and if not, you can go back and get those guys, similar to what we were talking about in fantasy. In fantasy, we were talking about the implications of the shortened training camp last year in respect to the rookie class coming in and being on a slower learning curve. Well, it's the same thing. You want to get guys who are going to be high value but low price. It's a new product. It's on special. It's affordable. Then after a while, they're like, hey, you keep buying this product. We're going to inch up that price. We're going to inch up that price. And then all of a sudden, there's another product comes out next to it. Looks a little better. It's a little bit cheaper. Why wouldn't I go with this product next to it? Looks similar. Tastes similar, and I save money. I'm going with the new product. I'm not going to, it's the same thing. So you got to get those guys in that certain moment when they got a lot of upside and not a low floor. You want guys with low floors, high ceilings. You want guys that are going to be there for you in that 3 to 5 year window, because that's the average. Anybody can come up here and talk to you about Aaron Rodgers. Anybody can come up here and talk to you about Tom Brady. Talk to me about how you're managing the other 52 guys on that roster, because I'm real concerned about that median. I'm real concerned about that middle. That's what Tampa had this year. They had that middle. They had those guys they could cash in on now in that 3 to 5 category. And they've peppered in some nice, the GOAT. And a GOAT at tight end. Oh, and by the way, we're going to get these guys who were first-round picks at running backs and didn't work out, but we're going to mix and mingle those guys. You need to find that magic area there where you can strike while the iron's hot. That's the key to the NFL. You need to follow your business model and know I'm going to spend this much on wide receivers. I'm going to spend this much on tight ends. Oh, I got a little left over in tight end. Maybe I can use that in running back. You got to approach it like a business.
Yeah, you got to look at it that way because that's how they're looking at it. They're trying to figure it out and keep it under a certain cap number. That's the same thing you have to do in the leagues where you have to do it by monetary value. Or if you don't do it that way, you still have to be smart about how you're going to put your team together and what the unit is going to ultimately look like. And you really have to think about these wide receivers are going to be shifting. And Mike and I could come on here to talk about, I don't even know, 37 different experiences that we have at wide receiver now. I mean, all these different changes and moves. So, you got to watch a lot of the teams that are trying to figure things out. Arizona's looking to add one more piece. Pittsburgh's trying to figure out what their pieces are going to be. Listen, if Juju's gone, you lose your 1 in Antonio, your 2 in Juju. Nobody stepped up as a 3, and you'll have nobody as a 1. And if you keep Juju, he's still not a 1. So Pittsburgh's in another place as well.
Well, actually, let me just jump in there.
Yeah.
Deonte Johnson had a fantastic year. He had a case of the dropsies, but he was pretty good with the targets he received. He got Chase Claypool, who was number 1 on my adjusted explosive index, the AEI. So Pittsburgh has a habit of drafting the wide receiver position real well. They spend little money. The guy gets high value. They can't pay the guy anymore. They let him go. That's okay because they're confident in their draft prep. They got another one coming right behind him. That cheaper, more sexier product right next to him. They're going with the younger guy.
Yeah, and usually there's somebody that steps up, like someone's on that upward trajectory already a couple of years in when the other guy comes in. Deonte and Chase and Claypool don't have that yet. So one of those guys would have to get up there quick, and then the other guy would have to follow.
Oh, they will. They'll be fighting for it. You'll have a 1 and a 1A there. Watch.
Well, and it would be good to see. I mean, James Washington has not caught on there. So it will be interesting to see how these teams shake out. And all I know is we have had a great conversation about the free agents affecting your fantasy, the quarterbacks. We started with the running backs, went to the quarterbacks, to the tight ends and the wide receivers. And now Mike and I have a date with some Miami Vices, some pina colada, strawberry daiquiri mixes by the pool. So we're going to be we're in the Sunshine State, Florida in focus. Mike has been my premier guest for our Wednesday, February 24th of our entire week in the Sunshine State. Mike, I appreciate you. I thank you so much. You can find my guy on HallOfFameFantasyFootball.com. You can also find us both on Winning Fantasy Football, the Facebook group. Just go right to Facebook, search bar Winning Fantasy Football. Join us there. And, of course, you got WakeUpCallDT.com. I want to thank all of the amazing companies that help to make all of these shows possible, including our entire Florida in Focus series from the second home of Wake Up Call. So a big thanks to Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, Avicoli's, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, the Millhouse Market, Pizza Man, Honda City of Liverpool, and Mon Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. Whether you're in Florida, whether you're in Central New York, wherever you may be in the 50 states, you can go to maandpazpopcorn.com, use the promo code DT20 and get 20% off on me right there on the site. So make sure that you do that. Mike, as always, I'm so happy that you look warm and comfortable, but I'm wearing the short sleeves too, and I'm wearing the right attire for Orlando and Lake Buena Vista. So with that being said, we'll bid you all adieu because Mike and I got a pool to catch. And as always, Sofka, I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Dan.